time travel in a fantasy tabletop RPG game, or really any storytelling game, can be problematic. I was surprised to find that there was a 2nd edition D&D supplement for a time-traveling class, as well as rules for a time-traveling campaign. Now, I can see my character now. The name's Time. Just in time. I'm a Chronomancer from Temporal Prime, and by the looks of things, it appears that I've arrived just when I was supposed to. Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and I'm taking a look at the older and not as well known, at least to me, wizard subclass from AD&D, the Chronomancer. Instead of the weave or elemental chaos or magical understandings and stuff, Chronomancers draw their power from the energy created by the momentum of time. Every living thing within the multiverse has a line that intertwines with one another, creating a time stream. Time streams that are adjacent from one another can allow passage from one reality to the next, but to get the big picture, you need to head to the demiplane of time, known as Temporal Prime. There in Temporal Prime, you can view all of the time streams, and a skilled Chronomancer can slip between the different realities. Now, Temporal Prime isn't really a demiplane, but for non-time travelers, it's easier to understand it that way. The more I read about Temporal Prime, it feels like the citadel at the end of time, the perfect spot to view all of the many time streams, or maybe the end of time in Chrono Trigger. It's a pseudo-reality that permeates every plane of existence and their alternate realities. Temporal Prime appears as an infinite expanse of black space with an infinite number of time streams flowing through it. Between the time streams, there is a thick bluish gray mist or smoke, and here, time exists in a physical state that can be looked at, measured, manipulated, and it is from this place that Chronomancers draw their energy to cast spells and travel through time. Is Temporal Prime on the Great Wheel cosmology? Well, it isn't on the map. It isn't on any map of the planes because Temporal Prime is either a well-kept secret or it's too difficult for our primitive brains to understand.
I'm just a caveman.
Chronomancers will briefly explain that it is actually one of the innermost planes, existing even further inward than the elemental planes. The known planes of existence are a reflection of Temporal Prime, the elemental planes being closest reflection and the outer planes being the last reflection. The prime material plane is a balance between all of these, which makes the prime material plane being in the center a bit more confusing. Does the sun not revolve around the Earth, guys? Traditionally, the wizard school of chronomancy could only be taken by humans, elves, or half-elves, with humans being the most skilled in the school. The magical resistances of dwarves and gnomes actually prevented time magic from flowing through the caster, so they were ill-suited to become chronomancers. You were required to have a 17 intelligence and a 16 wisdom to be able to comprehend the time magic and to have the insight in using it wisely. Chaotic characters were also prevented from becoming chronomancers, not because of their lack of skill, but because it was deemed too risky to teach them.
The universe is a crazy, chaotic place! You're the one that's crazy and chaotic!
There is no magical academy that will teach chronomancy. The only way to learn it is from master to apprentice. A chronomancer follows the normal wizard pattern, but extra spells and abilities open up to them. You are prevented from using certain opposing schools of chronomancy. Now, magic specialists in early D&D, this was very common. For example, red wizards always favored one school, and thus were prevented from using spells of an opposing school. In the case of chronomancers, you would give up spells of abjuration, conjuration, and necromancy. And also, you wouldn't be able to cast those spells from scrolls or magic wands. But one bit I did find very interesting is that at 5th level, your Chronomancer Wizard becomes immune to the effects of slow and haste. Some of the new spells only usable by a Chronomancer are Time Slip, which allows them to view the physical world as a time stream.
It's just a jump to the left.
Then they could slip into alternate streams appearing in an alternate world, or jump to the Temporal Prime. Another spell is called Create Slipgate, which does the same thing but establishes a door-like channel between reality and Temporal Prime. From Temporal Prime, you could go anywhere and any when. A few magic items were rumored to be able to take you to Temporal Prime, such as special versions of the Amulet of the Plains, but most didn't have a setting for Temporal Prime. But maybe yours does. Gravity, direction, air, all are at the perception of the individual in Temporal Prime. The only true thing there is time. The rest are just manifestations of what the individual or object had in their own timeline. So you'll breathe, but you don't really need to. And if you spend 6 months or longer in Temporal Prime, you'll forget how to breathe. It really just has no use there. And this causes constitution problems if you return to a timeline and are forced to reacquaint yourself with the physical act of breathing. This supplement is really interesting, and it gives you a lot of advice on time travel. And I've always wanted to incorporate time travel in a D&D game, but like how? Where do you start? What is the scope? There was just a lot to figure out. Luckily, this supplement has rules for campaigns and what to do when the past is altered and the future is in flux.
It's your kids, Marty.
Much of the idea feels similar to a Doctor Who fixed point in time. Now, if you decide a person or event is a fixed point in time, your players will see that the time stream tries to repair itself. One might think that the butterfly effect is in existence, but in reality, or D&D reality, time moves like a river, and a small impact here and there will be harder to redirect an entire river. But I see you already thinking, you're saying, Jordan, can I just travel backward or forward and help myself out with certain events? Well, anytime that you meet yourself, a time storm occurs, and that will thwart your attempt to meet yourself and deposit you back in the Temporal Prime. A time storm is something created after you've time traveled within Temporal Prime. The momentum of time reacts severely with those who attempt to abuse the time-space continuum. So one of the hard rules is you can't exist in the same timeline as yourself. Living a life and traveling back to be your best friend, it will cause a time storm. That is called lifeline doubles, and early symptoms of a time storm include déjà vu, minor paradoxes, déjà vu. At the instant before the lifeline doubles, which is the moment that you would actually meet yourself, the storm is so powerful that it opens a portal to the Temporal Prime and draws the attempted doubler through. I think the game designers realized how broken it would be to have 40 plus versions of your player character show up at once to cast magic missile on an ancient dragon. But that would be kind of cool. There are some helpful hints about paradoxes and how to deal with them. Your Chronomancer will ultimately change history. That's what they want to do. That's why the player chose the class Chronomancer. So little changes are fine, and even big events can be fine, but the Chronomancer must remember that redirection of the river, the time stream has a way of fixing itself. So if you wanted to stop an army, you could go back in time and kill the general, but you come back only to find out that it was lieutenant that really brought the army to victory. You can change most things, though, and again, it's up to your dungeon master, but Chronomancers, you should note that every time you do make a change, there is some turbulence that occurs throughout the time stream. There are little changes that can add up to creating more changes downstream, which results in a bumpy time stream.
We'll be experiencing some turbulence.
This supplement details all kinds of new spells that you can translate or modify into your 5e game if you wish. Delay Image puts the image of you 1 second into the past, so you're always just out of reach. Preserve is a spell that halts the decay of non-living matter. Time Slip allows the caster to slip between reality and the Temporal Prime. And another fun one is Artisus's Melee Manager, which isn't haste, but it allows you to more efficiently use your combat round, so you end up getting an extra melee attack every round. Minor Paradox allows you to go back in time the last 5 rounds, which is 30 seconds, and take back an action performed, or you can insert an additional action if time permits. Time Snare forces the target into a time loop within their mind. They'll repeat the previous action over and over and over. Time Heal reverses time on the subject's body to a point when they were healthy, essentially healing without cleric powers. Paradox allows you to change a minor event from the caster's past. So typically you use this to exchange one memorized spell for a more useful one, or you could go back to bring a more useful item, a collapsible boat instead of a rope. And a favorite of mine after reading the supplement is Time Reaver, where you send one or more creatures forward or backward in time 5 years. It's like banishment, except they won't return for 5 years. Of course, sending them backwards in time could cause terrible changes to your present, but forward, you would just need to remember to be back at that spot, ready to fight in 5 years. There are several high-level Chronomancers who decided to take it upon themselves to protect the time stream and time itself. They are self-appointed guardians and are essentially immortal, well, at this point. They aren't so much trying to control certain lifelines or destinies, they perform just general upkeep of the time stream. They handle degradation of lifelines and keep the time streams from interacting with one another. The Guardians are a tool for the DM to use, kind of like the Time Variance Authority from Marvel. There's lots of parallels here to the Sacred Timeline and paradoxes being cleaned up. Although these Guardians don't interfere as much as the TVA, your use of the Guardians may vary though. How do you feel about time travel in your D&D game? I know I'd have to set down some rules of time travel, and this book does a good job of that. So if I start causing too many anomalies and paradoxes, massive turbulences happen and time energies arise, which terminate the one causing the issues. However, if you wanted an evil Chronomancer villain for your campaign, some Chronomancers will cause paradoxes on purpose to harness the powers of a time storm. Standing in the eye of the storm, they're able to see all of time swirling around them. And a good villain will be one who had good intentions but would cause great harm. A lot of these concepts could work well in a Wildmount campaign due to Dunamancy subclass, the Wizard subclass Dunamancy. The spells associated with chronology would work well with a Chronomancer, obviously, but I wonder if Critical Role will be the first actual play to break into the temporal prime and bridge Exandria and Tyrell. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you like these videos, give a like and share with your friend. I have a Patreon where I write a bunch of stuff, including game mechanics. The Chronomancer PDF is down below in the description, and let me know if you've run a time travel adventure. I've always wanted to, but I couldn't figure out a good way to do it. Thanks again, and I'll see you all in the next video.